They say that when a spiritually elevated personality either enters or leaves the planets, there are really auspicious signs. Sometimes the earth trembles, sometimes the whole universe trembles, sometimes there's thunder and lightning, sometimes demigods shower flower petals from the sky. And it's really easy to glorify people who have passed away. I think it's a way of trying to hold on to them and not let them go. And sometimes we kind of overcompensate and turn them into these mythical characters. But genuinely, I do feel that my brother was a spiritually very advanced individual. And when he left, huge swathes of like very special people just suddenly manifested out of nowhere. And his hospital was full of like artists, writers, poets, musicians. It was a really special time. So anyway, push came to shove and we had to do what we had to do. Everybody who wanted to say something had said something, and those people that wanted to leave had left. He was in his own private room and we had to turn the machine off. The only thing that was really in question was whether or not people stay in the room with him while he has to go through this process of dying, or if we just leave him to do what he has to do. Everybody in this waiting room at this time told me, don't go in there. You will never ever be able to shake off the memory of watching your own brother die. I was helpless at this point because my brother wasn't there to give me advice. He's like my go-to guy, you know. So I'm now relying on the advice of cousins, friends, family. Every single one of them was saying, I'm not going to go, so I'm not going to tell you that you have to go. Or they're saying, don't do it. The trauma's too much. You're young, you're going to have to carry that burden for the rest of your life. I understood what they were trying to say, and I know they're only trying to say it for my own benefit, but something in me couldn't do it. I couldn't leave him just lying there on his own. And I knew that if I was in that situation, he'd be there with me. There's no way he would have left me. Fair play to anybody that didn't want to be there or who just couldn't do it. I can't criticise anybody. I wouldn't even want to. But there was something in me that just felt like it would be an absolute crime if I were to sit in another room while he had to go through that on his own. Even the doctors were saying, you know, it ain't pretty, man. It ain't pretty watching someone die. So I'm sitting there just torn, and the clock is ticking. You've got to make a decision. You can't wait around forever. My cousin walks up behind me and puts a hand on my shoulder. At that point in my life, in any other situation, if anybody had said this to me, I would have either laughed or just hit him. But he said to me, do you know what, mate? You just got to follow your heart. And in that split second, I said, right, I'm going in. They said it can take anything from 12 to 24 hours for an otherwise healthy person's body to kind of give up the ghost. So I'm now faced with the challenge of sitting in a room with a person who's about to die. Not something that I really expected to be doing that weekend. The nurses talked me through everything that they expected to happen. body naturally tries to expel phlegm from the chest. So this kind of horrible cough comes, convulsion. It almost seems like the body's been possessed. I sat with him through that, I held his hand, encouraged him. Out of all the things that we did together, that was a really weird one, man. That was a really weird one. I remember holding his hand and encouraging him and supporting him and telling him that he didn't have to be a hero and that whatever he had to do, he should just do it. I told him that he didn't need to impress me and he didn't need to worry about me, because the example that he'd set and the lessons that he'd learned in his life had given me everything that I needed to carry on without him, even though inside I was absolutely petrified at the thought of having to go it alone in life. Tried to make him feel peaceful. I cracked jokes and tried to make him feel at ease, completely unsure if he could even hear what I was saying. At one point, all these unpleasant symptoms passed. His body stopped convulsing. He stopped making these retching noises. And he just settled into a steady breath. So I lay down next to him and put my breath in rhythm with his. And the two of us meditated together for the first and only time of our whole lives, something which he'd been pestering me to do and which I'd never actually gotten it together to try. He seemed like a giant lying there, like a demigod or a statue. And his breath was powerful, his body was young, younger than I am now. And he just lay there breathing. I was on one side of his bed and his girlfriend was on the other, and the hours ticked by. I refused to sleep just in case I left him alone. I really relished the opportunity to serve him in some way. It was the only time in my life I ever felt like I really got to look after him. It was always him that was looking after me. And then at some point or another, he breathed in, then he breathed out, and he just didn't breathe back in again. And we waited, but that in-breath didn't come. And I looked over the bed at my brother's girlfriend, and she looked over the bed at me, and we both smiled and just felt a kind of joy I've never felt in my life before or since. I thought, wow, he made it. He made it. The doctor came in and then we had to sign the forms after that and do all the formalities. Of course, they gave us their condolences and they said they were very moved at the spirit and the atmosphere which had generated in the time that my brother had been in the hospital that weekend. They said, before you go, you can go and spend some time with him, and everybody said, no, he's not there anymore, he's gone. I didn't really know how I felt about that, and I thought, well, if I don't go and see him I might regret it, but if I do, I think I'll be okay with that. So I went in to go and see, and kissed his forehead and just left. That afternoon we got back to my mum and dad's house. And I slept until the evening. One of his friends phoned me up and said, "Do you want to come out, get out of the house?" And we drove through the country lanes to go and see a jazz band play in a pub nearby. And I remember, in the middle of February, just an absolute blizzard of snow. We were driving through these country lanes, these huge snowflakes just falling down everywhere around us. It was a really magical experience. I never really thought much of it, but that time when I went to go and see his body, just before we left the hospital, was really significant. I meditate on that experience frequently, because just 4 days before that had happened, we'd gone to a football match together. We had so much fun. But when I went and looked at his body just before I left the hospital, I didn't really want to hang out with that anymore. And the more often I think about it, the more I realise that what I loved and love about my brother wasn't his hair, his skin, his teeth, his liver, his lungs, his bones. It wasn't his eyes or his smile. All of those things were still there on that hospital bed. What I loved about him must have been something other than flesh and blood. Otherwise, why is a living body beautiful and a dead body disgusting?